dia a vocês.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carlos Alberto. I am from the north of the state of Paraná, in Brazil, and I have lived in Mato Grosso for over 30 years now. And today, in the aviation industry, this company that I own has been operating since 2004. That's when I started it.
E 2004 eu comecei. Mas antes disso, eu tentei várias coisas.
But before that, I tried many things in my life, many activities that led me to the point where I'm at now.
Eu saí de casa com 12 anos.
I left my parents' house very early, when I was a 12-year-old kid, to work as a waiter for my aunt. Years later, I got married and moved to Mato Grosso to work in a cattle farm. I already knew a little about crops, especially soybeans, because I had worked in Mato Grosso do Sul for some time in agriculture, and then I moved here to Sinop in 1987 to work with cattle. After some time here, I moved to other cattle farms until I ended up working with mining.
Outras fazendas de pecuária e acabei parando no garimpo. Mas eu tinha duas paixões, que era boi e caminhão.
But I had two passions in my life: cattle and trucks. It did not work for me to become a cowboy because I have never learned how to lasso. I spent 2 years trying to learn it, but I couldn't handle it. And at that time, a cowboy who couldn't lasso was not a real cowboy. So I ended up giving up on the cattle activity because of it.
E aí fui tentar outras atividades.
And then I started trying new kinds of work. Another dream of mine was to become a truck driver, but it never worked out for me. There were some beautiful Scania trucks at that time, but it never really happened in my life. In the meantime, I went on to work on lots of jobs. I tried becoming a miner, but it didn't work out. So I started planting my own vegetable garden to sell there.
Plantar verduras para vender. Uma época difícil, época de morar em barraco.
It was a very rough time, a time where I lived in a tent and faced hunger, but I was able to overcome those obstacles.
E dizer que eu tinha sonhos de ser piloto.
And to tell you that I used to dream that I would become a pilot would be a lie. I never had a dream, not even to work with aviation. It never even crossed my mind. It happened naturally over time for me. So, I used to sell my vegetables with my bike in the city. This was from 1989 to 1992. In the morning, I would sell my vegetables, and in the afternoon, I would sell snacks and pastries in the street. My ex-wife used to bake them, and I would leave home with 2 boxes, one with the snacks, another with ice cold juice to sell for the miners. And my life went on like that. People who worked with mining during that time will remember the stories about Humble in Castelo dos Sonhos city. There were some crazy stories about that time, very, very scary. But when they killed Rambo, the mining kind of ended there, and I had no one else to sell my vegetables to. So I returned to this region, where I ended up in Sorriso at a farm, working as a machine operator and doing some odd jobs at the farm.
Serviço geral em fazendas. E nessa época tinha uma empresa de aviação agrícola que prestava serviço lá na fazenda.
And at that time, there was an aviation company providing aero application services at that farm. There was no GPS system at that point. We were using flags. And because I was a cool worker, they actually chose me to work as a flagman, to signal for the airplanes. That happened in 1994, more or less. And there I became friends with the pilot, who also owned the airplane. 1 or 2 years later, he invited me to work for him as an assistant.
Pousador, né? Tem um monte de nome aí para essa turma aí. E aí quando eu entrei trabalhar com ele em 96,
So when I started working with him around 1996, I really liked the ag aviation industry and I learned a lot about maintenance. This pilot and owner of the company, Pedro, he is already deceased today. He taught me a lot about airplane maintenance. One of the first things I learned to do with an aircraft was magnetos. With 60 days there, I already knew how to fix magnetos, which is a very difficult part to find in piston engines today.
E aí fui aprendendo mais mecânica até que, numa oportunidade nesse mesmo ano de 96.
And then I learned a lot about maintenance. Until in that same year, I had the opportunity to buy an ultralight airplane. It was a Fox V4, manufactured in Rio de Janeiro. So I bought half of that airplane, partnering with one of the owners of the company, with the condition that he would teach me how to pilot. So I thought, it didn't work out as a cowboy, let me try my luck as a pilot now. And then he, in a rush to teach me as fast as possible, started training me very quickly. I remember the dates because I had something with Fridays. For me, there were some things that were not supposed to happen on Fridays. But at that time, I didn't even know I would be flying solo for the first time by Friday.
Mas eu nem sabia que na sexta-feira ia ser meu voo solo. Então nós começamos na quarta-feira voo de 15 minutos.
So we started on Wednesday with a 15-minute practice flight of touch and go landing. On Thursday, 15 more minutes of touch and go practice, and another 15 minutes on Friday. After that, he placed a barrel of water on the seat and told me, "You're going alone now." His name was Silvino. I told him, "Silvino, it's too early for me," but he said I could handle it. I was feeling a certain confidence, and that's when I had my first flight, with only 45 minutes of training. And I realized at that moment that my gift was to work with aviation, not as a trucker or a cowboy.
E a partir daí, eu comecei a me dedicar mais.
From there, I began to dedicate myself more. With 2 flight hours on the ultralight, I started doing some sightseeing flights in a neighboring city. It wasn't always easy, but it worked. Thank God everything was going alright. And that's when a friend of mine bought me a book and told me to study to become a pilot. I had barely finished primary school, or whatever people call it these days.
E aí eu fui estudar e eu mergulhei de cabeça no estudo porque eu gostei do negócio.
But I started studying, burying myself in the books, because I really liked it. And I saw it as the opportunity that I needed. I had tried so many jobs. I was a waiter, I worked as a driver. I spent 2 years trying to become a cowboy. Worked with agricultural machinery, maintenance, everything. But I never found something that I enjoyed doing and that was easy for me to learn.
Gostasse e que eu tinha facilidade para aprender, para pegar. Então, quando eu entrei nessa empresa de ajudante,
So, when I started as an assistant in this company, I already liked working with maintenance. Because aircraft maintenance is very clean. It is tall, so you work with the engine at a certain height. Very clean. While agricultural machinery maintenance is very dirty, very low and messy.
eu continuei voando e logo veio a ideia de montar um tralé para fazer
I continued to fly, and soon I had the idea to buy another ultralight to start spraying. It was something more comfortable financially, because I had some money saved to enter this business. So, I bought an ultralight manufactured in Uberlândia. I don't believe they still make it to this day. It had a Beetle engine, 1.8. I finished assembling it and started to spray in a city very close to Sorriso. It was called Ipiranga do Norte. Very small areas, around 80 to 100 hectares, and that's where I started, doing my tests and my first flights. It worked out great until those ultralights started to fail and I had some forced landings.
certo, eu fui voando, e aí esses ultraleve foi dando pane, fui fazendo lançado. No total hoje eu tenho 14 voos forçados, 8 ultraleve.
Up to this day, I have had 14 forced landings, 8 in ultralights, 5 in egg airplanes, and 1 with a Cessna 182. But always forced landings, never falling. I have landed in pastures, roads, in the middle of a road, all landings. The engine stopped, I never got scared, and I was able to land. And that helps me until today, this ability to never get scared in emergency situations. To have the peace of mind to do the landing properly, because if the engine stops and you get scared, then the plane is going to fall. And that was my start. I flew a season with a Beetle engine, 14,000 hectares. I had bought that ultralight for 30,000, I paid 16 and ended up owing 14. And at the end of the season, the engine stopped with me. I had to land it in the middle of a cotton field and lost a wing. But to sum up the situation, when I ended that season, I believe it was 1997 or 1998, something like that. I had money to pay the 14,000 debt, 4,000 to fix the plane, and I still had 30,000 to pay for my private pilot course. And when pilots make some money, they buy cars. That's what I did. I bought my first one with that money. Up to that moment, I only had bikes. And from there, the aviation activity never stopped for me. I finished my private pilot course and started flying for a businessman here in Sinop. He had cotton farms. I flew for a year for him. After that, a company came to Sinop. It was called Moncador Aviation. And even without the ag aviation license, I only had my private pilot license. I started flying for this company and worked with them for over 4 years. Following that, I had an opportunity to buy my airplane. It was a PA-36 375 Piper. And from there, I started my own activity. I did not have a company at that moment, no business number. I was just flying by myself until I started a company in 2013. I bought other airplanes, also Pipers, but many failures and forced landings happened, and that created a certain trauma for me. I already had a dream of having one of these airplanes here, because this is the Ferrari of airplanes. The Air Tractor is the best airplane manufactured in the world. Yes, there are good airplanes out there, but this is the best of them. This one here was bought in 2012. Before that, the dealers would come here and offer it to me, but it was a very difficult condition for me to buy them. With no company, no good declaration to present to Air Tractor. So the dealer, John, he's the dealer for Air Tractor here in Brazil, he gave me a beautiful poster and I hung it on that wall. And I would look at the poster and then look at the hangar with no airplanes at that moment, and I could see another tractor here. It is every pilot's dream to fly an air tractor, and there was also a need to have one, because this is an airplane that doesn't fail. It is ready to go every day. You can count on that every day it will be ready. The other ones they will go to, but it's difficult. They are good one day, but they might not work the next one.
vendi dos aviões menores para poder comprar.
Then in 2012, I sold one of the smaller airplanes to place the down payment for this airplane. And from 2012, my life changed. More doors were opened for me, it gave me more safety, and we were able to expand our market share. It is not easy. Everyone involved in aviation knows that it is very hard to keep a company here in Brazil. You have like 8 entities regulating the business. Everything is really expensive. It is very difficult. And I see it as a very difficult business to keep. Here in Sinop, there were other companies, but they are closed right now. Right now, I have the only business working here. You have to really like the business, and it takes a lot of time for you to learn how to manage it.
Então, é uma atividade assim que você tem que gostar do negócio, né? Demora tempo para você aprender a tocar.
It wasn't easy, but we were able to win our battles. From this one here, we bought another one in 2019, and for the next year there are 2 more air tractors arriving here. We work in other states in Brazil for different seasons, so we have another operational base in the state of Roraima, so we are able to move our assets between seasons. When the season is finished here in Mato Grosso, we move our assets to Roraima and we work there. And everything has been working out, thanks to God.